Hi guys, so today I'm finally coming back to you for a video that I really wanted to put out in June for Pride, and I'm quite late, so hopefully I can upload it today because it's the last day of June basically. I have done, I think a few months ago, a video about some queer authors, and I was recommending to you some queer authors that were mostly English speaking or English writing authors. And in this video, as you can probably guess by the title, I'm gonna introduce you, maybe you know them already, maybe not, so I'm gonna introduce you or maybe remind you of some French authors that were also queer. So before I get started, I just want to say this is not an exhaustive video. There are a lot more poets and writers that could be in the list. Some of them are bisexual, some of them are homosexual, some of them have not really defined themselves or even been defined, but there are some experiences and situations and traces in their lives but also in their writings of some queer feelings and experiences. And if you're interested, I made you another video about some other authors, or maybe in particular on one or two authors that maybe you're more interested in, so please let me know. Those authors that I'm gonna talk about in this video today, I chose because I know them, I chose because I think they're very talented writers, and because I also think they could be easier for you to find in translation. So we are going to start with a very obvious one, a one that I really love, and it's Colette. So Colette, that may be really famous now in the States because of the movie that was made a bit, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, or 2 years ago, I don't really remember. But yeah, Colette was a French artist, because she did not only write, so she was a French artist and she did write a lot, and she was bisexual. So she has had experiences with men and women, and she has talked about this in some of her writings. And the parts that are the more obvious when it comes to her queerness are the ones in her letters, for example, but you could also find traces of that in other parts of her work. So she's a very talented writer. She's not focusing so much on sexuality and, you know, bisexuality or her experiences with women, but she is a very talented writer. I would highly recommend checking her out, and if you're more interested in the queer part of her work, you can always, you know, look a bit more into that. So Colette is a huge recommendation. The second one is also really huge, and it's an author I really like because I think his writing style is just amazing. It's extremely poetic, extremely sensual. It's probably one of the most beautiful styles I've encountered, I think, and it's André Gide. So Gide is, it's actually hard to, yeah, Gide is a very, I would say he's quite famous, but he's not studied that often, I would say, at least for me personally. In my years of high school and then later at uni, we never really studied Gide. I know it was at the baccalaureate, so like the high school, the end of high school exam that we have in France a few years ago. Yeah, I think so. And the book I really want to recommend is Les Nourritures Terrestres. So this book is just divine. I think I've talked about it before. I think I've talked about it in one of my French books you don't know but you should, or French books you should read. And I've also recommended it to my patrons on Patreon, because it's just a wonderful book. It's basically a collection of bits and pieces of writings that focus on sensuality, on life, on beauty, on earthly experiences, but the beauty of it is just mind-blowing, honestly. And it's such an easy read because it is not like a novel. It's not either a collection of short stories, so you could really pick it up anytime you want and then let it for a few days, a few weeks even, and pick it up again. It's just honestly so beautiful, and I really love the works of Gide, so I would highly recommend. Next is also a man, and it's Cocteau. So Cocteau was also an artist. He produced some films, he illustrated, and he also wrote. So I have read my first book by him this year, and it was Le Livre Blanc et autres écrits, autres écrits, so I don't know how it's going to be translated. Everything is going to be in the description box below or on the screen. So Cocteau was very famous as well, and his homosexuality was very well known, and he has written extensively on homosexuality. It's definitely extremely interesting, it's definitely very beautiful as well, and I would highly recommend it too. It is very, I think, for foreigners who usually really like Sartre and Camus, for example. I think Cocteau could be also an author you would like. It is very French. I don't know how to explain that, but perhaps you get what I mean. So yeah, Cocteau is also a huge recommendation. Next, a woman, and it is Marguerite Yourcenar. So Marguerite Yourcenar is a French writer whom I do not really like that much, to be honest. I have read only one book by her for the moment, so I can't really judge, and I'm planning to read more, so you know, so that I can form an opinion. But yeah, she was a lesbian, and it's really interesting to see. For me personally, she wrote, she is very interesting in the sense that she was a woman who loved women, yet she wrote a lot about men, and she wrote a lot about men who loved men. So her work is a bit more difficult to get into, I would say. It's a bit heavier, let's say, than Gide, Cocteau or Colette, who also wrote some short pieces, some collections, and who have a very poetic and light style. I don't know how to explain this, whereas her style, Marguerite Yourcenar's one, is a bit heavier. It's a bit more old-fashioned, I would say. So maybe not for everyone, but it's a less known figure outside of France, I would say, and in the queer community. So I would also recommend her if you are interested. Okay, next we have a poet who is a bit older than all the artists mentioned in this video so far, and it's Verlaine. So Verlaine is a very famous French poet. I don't know if he's really famous outside of France. Please let me know, I'm really interested to know what it is like in your country when it comes to all those authors mentioned. So he's famous as well for having had a relationship, a very passionate and tumultuous relationship with another French poet whose name is Rimbaud. The reason why I haven't included Rimbaud in this video is because I don't really know his work that much. I don't really like him too much, to be honest, and I don't know if he has really mentioned homosexuality in his writings, whereas I know that Verlaine did. So Verlaine is known for his beautiful poems, but he has also written some erotic poems, and he has written about lesbians and gays. So he has written about lesbian characters loving each other, and he has written about gay characters loving each other. So if you want to get into maybe erotic poetry, or if you want to discover a poet who is, you know, queer and who wrote about it, you could always check out Verlaine. He's also I think he's a very underrated poet, because in France, as I said, he's very famous, but he's more famous for his relationship with Rimbaud, and he's famous for a few of his poems, but not for his work as a whole, whereas it's really interesting, and I'd love to see him a bit more studied and revisited. It'd be amazing. So after that, I want to talk about another poet who was not French, but who wrote in French. She was actually British, and she wrote in French, and it's Renée Vivien. So yeah, everything's said basically. She was a British woman, a British poet, wrote in French, and she was a lesbian as well. And she was in this circle of lesbian women in the 19th century in France, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting, but it's also kind of frustrating because there is not so much, like there aren't that many studies or that many papers written about this particular group that they were in, and that's something I really want to discover more and study more and focus on. So that's probably maybe something I'm going to talk about in the future. But Renée Vivien is I think her style is very exquisite, and it's so interesting to see someone writing in French when it's not their native language. It's just mind-blowing to me as well. And she did write about women, celebrating women's beauty, women's bodies, and the love for women. So she is also very easy to read, I would say, which is perhaps not the case for all of the authors mentioned. Like I would say Gide and Yourcenar are a bit Gide because it's highly poetic and very conceptual sometimes, I would say, and Yourcenar because the style is kind of heavy and very like full of information and knowledge and descriptions and everything. Renée Vivien is very easy to read, I would say, but highly beautiful as well. So it's really a recommendation for some of you that may be not used to poetry, may find it difficult to read, and who want to read some queer authors. So here you go. And then we are gonna end with Violette Leduc. So Violette Leduc was a French writer. She wrote novels, essentially, and she was also writing about homosexuality. She also met Simone de Beauvoir, and if you don't know, by the way, Simone de Beauvoir was bisexual as well. So yeah, there are a few of her books, many of her books actually, where you can really feel that component. Earlier this year I read She Came to Stay, which is L'invité in French, and it's very obvious the feelings that the main character, who is a female, has for the other protagonist, who is also a female. So Violette Leduc is not so well known even in France, so I really wanted to put her in the video because I think it's, you know, it's kind of always a shame and frustrating and a bit saddening when you see some authors who are very talented but who haven't really made it to, like, I don't know, textbooks and university and libraries and people's bookshelves and booktube or bookstagram or anything like that. And I hope that maybe some of you are going to discover her work and perhaps like it and perhaps read her and talk about her a bit more. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you're interested, please let me know. I could do another video recommending to you some other authors, or I could perhaps pick one of those authors that were mentioned in this video and tell you more about their work and the queer component of it. If you're interested, let me know. Let me know if you have read some of those authors, let me know if you knew them, let me know if you are interested in one of them now, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!